Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Beyond Influence. I am here with my co-host, Scott, and we are joined by a very special guest today. We have a best-selling author, CEO, such a big impact. I have to clear my throat before I can finish it. But best-selling author, a CEO, and a communications expert. We have today with us Maha Abouelenein.
Hey.
Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I love the purple.
Yes,
got the Minnesota Vikings vibe going.
You know, it's kind of it's serendipitous because the Seahawks did just pick up Sam Darnold.
Yes.
From the Vikings. So it's full circle. But I'm also in my Huskies gear because I just started a cool influencer little connection partnership with the Huskies. So we're going to be going to a few of their games this year.
Fun.
We got to connect with a couple of their really awesome players. Jonah, who's, we're hoping is going to go, top 10 in the NFL draft. So we'll see how it goes.
Very cool. I'm a big football fan, so I like following all the news. We're waiting to find out if Aaron Rodgers is going to come to Minnesota or if he's going to go to the Steelers or what's going to happen. So we'll see.
It is wild times in football. And speaking of football, we recently actually spent some time together at the Super Bowl,
Yes.
And that was kind of how we reconnected. It was actually funny because Kwame and I were standing there and he goes, "That's Maha." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, I've talked to her.
Yeah.
And it was just the funniest interaction, and it led to an awesome connection. We got to spend some time together there, but really excited that you were able to take the time and come spend it with us. You have such an amazing perspective, so much experience, and just really excited to dive into the convo.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it was fun. I always like going to the Super Bowl and like spending time with people that you didn't expect you were going to run into and hang out with. And I could have jammed all night with you guys. So we'll run it back next year.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? The crowd at the Super Bowl is so wild. You will see Amy and every single person there. It's I don't know. It's really awesome. I mean, going to these events and then just like hanging out with people that you've probably seen on TV or online for years.
Yeah. Meet with them.
Yeah, we saw, this is such a minor little one, but also kind of a big one. Saw Big Justice at the,
that's right.
at the Gary Vee party, which is so funny, right? Just somebody that I would have never in my life been like, yeah, I want to run into this person or I really follow this person. But once you see them, you're like, I know who this person is.
Yeah. So here's the thing about going to events like the Super Bowl. And I talk about this a lot. Like, it's not just a bunch of parties where you're just going to like hang out. Like, you can actually do business, like meet people, talk to them face to face. They're in a relaxed environment. They're in a different setting. And I get so much business out of going to the Super Bowl because everyone's there in a condensed time. So, potential clients, media, business opportunities, use these events to really leverage them to create new introductions or relationships. And I'm still doing follow-up for my list. Like, I went to the Super Bowl and I made a list of everyone I met on the plane on the way home. I'm like, okay, this one I want to do podcast. This one I want to try to talk to them about training. This one you really, really can do that if you intentionally go to these events with your eyes wide open to try to leverage them. That's what I was asking you. How was South by Southwest? Like, should I go next year? Like, it's not just to go to parties, it's to go to open relationships and meet new people.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of South by Southwest, to wrap kind of that part up, like South by Southwest was really awesome. I mean, you had so many opportunities, like learning opportunities. You had so many great speakers, so many great panels, but then you also just had these really fun activations. It was just a great combination of like technology, music, movies, all of these things, right? You could go see a talk from someone speaking about, I don't know, the financial aspects of life and TV and television or whatever it is. And then you walk down the street and you see a big golden goblet and there's a bunch of Love is Blind people in there. And they're taking pictures with you. And then you go down the street, it's a Rivian activation and they're showing you how well the car powers through, hills and so on and so forth. So I love the way everything's kind of married in this awesome setting at South by. I really enjoyed it.
Brands come into life in different experiences. It makes a difference when you can get up and close personal with the brand. It changes your mind. Like now Rivian, now I'm thinking about that. Like, it's a different mentality of how you can be close to a brand face to face.
It's funny. I know, a big focus of your work is around kind of relationships and communication and managing through your career. It's funny because I came from this very like digital marketing engine where,
Mhm.
you're thinking about, okay, lead gen, and I'm going to spend this much and it's going to convert to these leads. And then you kind of sit back and you're like, these are all just people who are trying to discover ways to run their business better. And then you kind of do this moment of self-reflection. You're like, is a great experience me seeing, some random thing above all my Google search results that's like a side swipe at your competitor, and then like some crappy 8-click experience through a web page? I would much rather you meet me at an event, have a conversation, have some interesting things, add value, and teach me something, and then kind of earn that relationship. And from there,
Yeah.
I just, it's so much more of an enjoyable way. And it's funny because we went through, building out our go to market and so much more. We're just, let's develop relationships with really great people. Let's add value with like no immediate ask. And then what we found is like people are so happy to engage in those kind of
Yeah,
conversations.
and
And
that's a great on ramp to build a relationship with someone, is not to have a transaction, right? Like, how do you build a relationship based on like, how can I help? What can I do to bring value to you? It's a huge difference maker.
yeah, by the way, for all the people out there, same for your social life, by the way. If you just go in with no expectations, build relationships,
Yeah.
add value, get to know people, and are actually, what is this like, how to win friends and influencer, actually be interested in what someone is about and what they're trying to accomplish in life. So anyway,
I
my
teach
rant.
people, yeah, I teach people about this. There's like, networking for a lot of people is daunting, right? So like, what is a low lift thing you can do to network with many people? You can easily do it through social media. Go comment on people's posts, share their work, support them, show up for them. Like, I can spend 15 minutes every single day just seeing what my colleagues and friends and network are up to, and then boosting their work or commenting or showing them love. It's a low lift thing to do. Everyone can do it. And I feel like it's one of the best ways you can kind of stay up to speed with what people are doing that you care about. And even like if you're going to go to a South by Southwest, you should post, I'm going to be out there. Who's out there? Because you don't know that maybe someone in your network is going to be there and you didn't know if you potentially could meet them. And I really think that matters, is like meeting somebody face to face. That's why, like, if I really want to meet somebody, I will send them a DM and I make it really quick saying, can I have 5 minutes of your time? Because who's going to say no to 5 minutes of your time? Like, you're like, I have 5 minutes to talk to somebody, and try to get it into a DM, into an email, into a meeting so you can meet them in real life. Because then you can really tell people who you are, what you care about, why did you want to meet them, and so on.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the way that networking in itself has transcended throughout the ages, right? I think we all thought it was a very in-person thing alone, and then COVID happened, and then we were bound to, being behind our computers, and then Zoom stock rose because everybody had to meet online and look at each other through a screen, and then now it's become this awesome combination of both things, right? How do we start our relationships? Maybe just getting a bit of a connection, connecting on LinkedIn, shooting a quick note. Hey, great to connect with you. And then hopefully just like transitioning that to, you're going to this event, I'm going to be there as well.
Yep.
Let's connect there. But like the best ways to really form deep connections is to have that full cycle relationship, because, going to events with Scott when we were at the Super Bowl, we got to go to an in-person event, and it just felt like the people we were talking to there, like it just felt like such a smooth, easy conversation. And that led to like a basketball game for me. I ended up playing
Yeah.
pickup basketball with them. And then that transitioned then to now, like, I have, their cell phone numbers, right?
Yep.
And that's really what I think networking and hoping to connect and create business and longevity with people is. It's not just like, I'm interested in what you have,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
you should be interested in what I have. It's like, let's get to know each other and see how that benefits us.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a world where we want like instant gratification. We want to like tap to pay and get out of the, store. We want to download a whole season of Love is Blind at the same time. Like, we don't want to wait. And even in relationships, a lot of people are like, I need favors. I need to use my network. And I always say, like, your network is not there to serve you. You need to serve your network. And the concept of networking is, it's really something that a lot of people, like, it's a new skill you need to know how to do. Like, even on Zoom, like if you work at a company, how are you making sure you're building relationships with people that are on the screen with you? Because a lot of people, we always think about networking with people outside the company where we work, but like, what about the people within your firm or your company that you work that might help your career or give you good advice or be a mentor or open up a new opportunity for you to switch jobs within the company? Like, try to think about relationships differently, whether you're going to an event or on Zoom. try to connect with a person and get time with them so you can build more of a rapport and start with a low level ask in terms of their time and then grow from there.
It's funny. I do this thing, and I don't know if it's a good idea or bad idea, but it's just something that I've found is I have this idea of like, I call it like vocal eye contact in Zoom,
That's
which is
cool.
you can't really see eye contact, but I try to like vocally shout out every person in like a random example. Like it
Oh,
was
that's
funny.
cool.
We were making an announcement and I like called on Kwame. I was like, hey, Kwame, tell us a joke. Or like, oh man, look at Maha's background. Like her bookshelf is like so organized, and I think it's like, these little call outs make
Get
people feel
people engaged.
seen, get them
Yeah.
engaged. But by the way, this is a side rant. Did y'all do the virtual wine tastings during COVID where you like ship everyone wine and then it's
Something,
like
yeah,
this
I've done stuff
forced.
like that before. Not with wine, but like where you give them a kit and then they do something with it.
I'm so glad to be past those
Yeah, it's
days.
like
Like
we're leaving
trying to do
wine.
forced socialization and wine tasting like remotely in your basement. Like I'm just like, oh my
We
God.
were trying to be creative and innovative. We didn't have a choice. We had to
I
like
know
come up with something to connect us.
we're amazing, and at the time it felt like a break. But I'm just like
Yeah,
seeing,
so over it.
like standing in a room, getting to actually have human interaction is just it's so
Nothing
much
beats
better.
it. Nothing
It's so
beats
much
it. But
better.
events are really effective for that. Like I find like so many big, like it's like a big moment. I never miss the Super Bowl just because the number of people that I can meet in those 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is insane.
100%. So
Yeah.
I feel like we dove in. Like
Oh, okay.
we haven't really given a lot of context. So maybe for those, who might not be familiar with
Yes.
you, talk a little bit about your work and
Yes.
what you're spending your time on. And obviously you've created a huge following. You had a lot of success in your career, and just help, our audience unpack that.
Yeah, but I need to work with you guys. I've been diving into what you guys do. So I am a communications executive. I'm born raised in Minnesota. I'm 100% Egyptian, and I help people tell their stories. I help them think about reputation, about their personal brands, about how to connect with audiences. I used to run communications and public policy at Google out of Dubai. I launched Netflix in the Middle East. I worked with the ruler of Dubai for many years. And I built Weber Shandwick, which is a global PR firm. I built all of their offices in the Middle East. I used to live half my life in Minnesota and the other half of my life in Egypt and Dubai. And then I came back during the pandemic, and I've been back here for 5 years. I have my own firm. We work with Gary Vee, Deepak Chopra, Halle Berry, Chase, like banks. We work with companies, but we work with a lot of people, helping them figure out how to tell their stories and build their brands. Heidi D'Amelio, that was the client call that I had. I'm like, I need to push this back an hour. Just really helping people tell their stories. And one of the things, like I started my career doing a lot of communications for companies like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, the Visas of the world, and then started working a lot with governments, because governments, like people, have to be transparent, tell stories, build trust, create credibility. And then I started working with brands, like personal brands, people, and executive profiling, and how do you build thought leadership, because people follow people, they don't follow companies. And how do you build trust? Just because you have a lot of followers doesn't mean you have a lot of influence or impact, and it doesn't equal credibility. Like someone could have a lot of followers, but they have no credibility in what they do. And so how can you do that thought leadership? And I firmly believe that everybody in the world has something to offer, to teach people how to sew, how to do yoga, how to build bikes, how to paint, how to tell stories, how to go viral on social. Like everybody has something to offer. And we live kind of in a world, what I kind of like to call the trust economy, where people really want to build trust and authenticity with people that they interact with. And there's plenty of people to choose from to do business with. And you don't want to do business with people you don't feel are authentic or are transparent or are trustworthy. And so that's kind of what I help people do, is make sure they hone in on like, what do you really care about? How do you scale that? How do you communicate that? And how do you get people to not just believe you, but to trust you, because that's the currency that matters. And your reputation is the only thing you actually need to be worried about every night. It's like, how do you build a good reputation? How do you build a brand that people love? And your name is all you own. And I really believe that when people think about personal brand and replace it with the word reputation, people go, oh my gosh, like, yeah, what am I doing to build my reputation? Because if you have a good reputation and you can build good relationships, and if you have good relationships, you can get better opportunities. And if you get better opportunities, you can make more money. If you make more money, you can have more freedom. So there's all these things that come along with building a good reputation that affords you opportunities. And that's what I do in a nutshell. Sorry, I went very long.
No, I mean, I think you said something that really, really stuck with me is like, I didn't think about the impact of trust as an overall as much as you just made me think about it, because everything is based on trust. When it comes to politics, even, it's like, how
Yes.
much can people trust me? And in certain situations, maybe my message is meant to make people distrust whoever I'm running against,
Yep.
right? Because ultimately, everything that comes with moving forward and having impact and having the ability to work with someone or having the ability to lead someone has to do with trust. And so that is a very, very great point. I'll definitely work that into the things
Yeah,
that I
because
think about
if
more.
people trust you, they'll do business with you, and then they'll recommend you to other people. Like they're like, no, these guys are good. They did me a solid, or they delivered, or they had results. Like that's what you're at the end of the day. You will be able to not just survive but thrive, because you'll be able to build those relationships into a currency that's very, very valuable.
It's funny. A lot of people ask me, hey, stepping into a CEO role, like, what is the big takeaway? What's like the biggest thing? What's the hardest thing? And I think what's really interesting is like a lot of people would be like, oh, it's juggling the different multiple aspects of the business or prioritization making and decisions or any of that. I think actually the biggest thing is I've realized how important the story, the content, the ability to tell your message and have it be heard,
Mhm.
have people care. And that goes internally and externally. If your employees don't have a very clear understanding of where you're headed, what you stand for, who the leadership
Yes.
team
So,
is, and why it resonates. And then externally, I'm so much more aware of how I discover products and how I discover information and how it then leads to decisions. And I coming back to that whole marketing point, like I was very transactional in my thinking about sales. I was like, okay, we buy leads, we work the leads, we have conversion rate, we drive sales, we drive up ASP. And then we take a step back. It's like, this isn't how I discover things. This isn't the journey. This isn't why I love companies. And that's been one of the biggest challenges. And there's this really interesting, you talked a lot about giving back and like being net value add in interactions.
yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
my biggest challenge, I'd be curious, your feedback is every post I make, I just don't want to be a lame, boring B2B corporate
Mhm.
CEO just putting crap on the internet. And I'm
Yep.
like, what do I have to say that's actually useful to another human being that will help them in some way? And that type of content creation is far, far harder than just
Yeah,
the
but it's
generic
it's 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 lived
LinkedIn stuff.
experience. Like if you just
Yeah.
focus on your lived experience, that's valuable, because that is authentic to who you are and what you went through as a company. The thing you just brought up about the leadership thing, about what's the hardest part about leadership and trust. So we at my company, we just got done doing like, IDPs and development plans and the strategic vision for the company of where we're going to go over the next couple of years. And everyone needs to know where they fit in that. Like you need to build that level of trust that like, I trust you to share with you where we're going. Where do you fit into this whole picture? And building trust within an organization is far more important than building it outside, because your team are your ambassadors and the ones that you want to be on this rocket ship with you to see if they believe in this mission of what you're trying to achieve, because you can't do it alone. And so they need to trust your vision. They need to trust that they feel safe with you if they're upset about something, or they don't know, can I approach her and ask her about something or talk to her about a problem? I'm like, yeah, we have to have that. We spend a lot of time working on trust, making sure that we trust each other to come to each other when there's a problem with a client or internally, because that's what builds the organization foundation that's like unshakable.
I'm curious, how do you approach that? Like, if you're trying to coach or mentor someone to get started, and how do I foster trust? How do I build that relationship? Where would you encourage people to kind of start on
Yeah,
that
we,
journey?
we
It's
just
tough.
did
It's
this.
tough.
Yeah, we just did this week. But one of the things is like I started with like me being vulnerable, like me kind of just sharing, taking you have to break down, walls and pedestals and just like, listen, this is how I feel. And just coming from a place of vulnerability builds trust. Because if you just think like you're above everything and you don't know anything, or you're looking down on people, that doesn't work. Like creating that safety net is really important. Sharing that vulnerability, that's what builds trust. And I think connecting with others by sharing your truth is what is a good place to start.
I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think dating back to or thinking about how you got into all of this, it seems like you've had, quite the generational run along the path that you've been on, being in communications. What was that initial, lightning bolt moment or, light bulb, whichever way you put it. But ultimately, what's that initial trigger that made you think this is what I want to do?
Yeah, like I always, like when I was in college, I worked as an intern in a newsroom. And that's kind of when I got the bug of like, you were in the newsroom, there's something that comes in over the wire. We have to figure out how to package it before we tell it to the world on broadcast. I was like an intern for a CBS affiliate. And that like excited me to no end. Like, how do you take a bunch of information, distill it, soften it, because it might be some bad news or good news, and how do you share that with the world? So that's when I kind of got it when I was in college. But I wanted to be a journalist. I thought I was going to be like a TV anchor and standing up live doing stand-ups and then telling stories to the world. And I ended up doing the opposite of where I help clients figure out how to tell their stories to the news and persons. And it changed. Like it used to be the news was like, the evening news or the newspaper was the news. And like then it became the internet, then it became social media, then it became in your phone. And it's like rapid response and everything is now and culture has changed. We don't watch news anymore. We listen to podcasts. We don't turn on the television. We look at YouTube, like we look at TikTok, like my source of where I get information from has changed. And so good stories resonate with people when you meet them where they're at. Like, how do you deliver a story on TikTok and Instagram or a blog post or LinkedIn where you may have used a media outlet. Now you can do it direct to consumer. So everyone has to be good at storytelling all of a sudden. Everyone has to be good at, communications. It's not a nice to have to be good at comms. It used to be my work was only dealing with the CEO and the head of PR. Now you're dealing with everybody because everybody that works at a company gets asked like, hey, what do you do? What's your job? What's your role? Everybody has social media accounts. Everybody has audiences. So it's completely turned it upside down. And I think my aha moment was when I worked in the newsroom as an intern. And then technology is just accelerating and changing consumer behavior. So you have to adapt how you storytell based on what people are consuming. The elections this year was a big example. Like podcasts were a really big deal, where before, when Obama was running, it was all about Twitter and social media. So like every generation is having a different way of learning about social issues, topics, politics, government. And I feel like the next election will be a much different iteration of that as well, because AI is going to be changing how we look at information and we digest it. So fasten your seatbelt.
Yeah, I was like, we're gonna get JD Vance doing TikTok dances or something.
Yeah.
It's gonna be some wild new paradigm.
Please don't.
I'm curious. It's interesting because kind of where I came up in my generation, it was an interesting inflection point in society where I feel like business culture went from being suit wearing, tie every day, gotta be the finance bro, kind of perfect image of perfection, almost politician-esque. And there just seems to be this disillusionment with that type of kind of business culture. And it's definitely shifting. And it's funny, there's speaking of vulnerability, like me as a CEO wearing a sweatshirt and a hat and being open about my thoughts and feelings and not necessarily needing to have a perfectly ironed everything and come across a certain way. It's a very weird, interesting, not just personal vulnerability. It's allowing yourself to express yourself the way that you feel comfortable, but not in an unprofessional way. I'm curious how you help people wrestle with balancing vulnerability with maybe a feeling of people won't take them seriously, or people won't feel that they're competent, or they might not be able to see through, them showing them their true self to see the thoughts, ideas, the capabilities that they have, and they're able to deliver.
I mean, it's pretty common. We judge a book by its cover, right? What do you look like? How are you dressed? It has a lot to say about your story and your message. And I'll give you a good example. So I do a lot of business, like I said, in Dubai, and I work with Gary Vee, and Gary's always like t-shirt, sneakers, a hat, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go meet the minister. Like, we can't walk in wearing, you know, sneakers and a hat and all this kind of stuff. But then I was like, you know what, that's his brand and that's authentic to who he is. And everyone needs to feel comfortable. So I had to like unlearn some of my own kind of biases towards like, this is what we're supposed to do and this is how things are supposed to look. And then Gary rocks up. I mean, they just care to meet him. They don't care about what he's wearing. And I learned that in a second, like you have to put away what you think you should be doing and just focus on what is authentically, like, I also want him to be comfortable in these meetings, right? I want him to be himself. And I really believe that times have changed. I actually have a chapter in my book about unlearning and relearning, because like even when we would hire candidates at my company, you're always looking at what was their degree, where did they go to school. Nobody cares about that. Like, what is your experience? Are you a good human? Are you empathetic? Are you kind? Are you a team player? Can you collaborate? Do you fit with my culture? Like, that's the new barometer of understanding that you have to evolve in the way that you see things so you can be open to opportunities that you probably may have closed yourself off of in the past because that's the way it should have been. And now those rule books are just torn up and thrown away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the transition of what it has become. It used to be that if you kind of just wore sweats and, went into a Mercedes dealership, you were either just, you were just brushed aside or, the salesman got lucky and you were a professional athlete or something. But if you went into a place that looked like it had high class, fancy decor, you had to be in high class, fancy decor yourself. And I feel like it's definitely been a barrier breaking thing. And, looking at the newer generation, looking at Gen Z and the fact that a lot of them have made, mini fortunes off of, the internet and are now just coming out being regular people, and really, really kind of changing that process of what we thought was a successful, wealthy business person, because there's a lot that goes into it. We spoke to a friend of mine, Marcel, who, said that he wasn't the best in school, right? But he transitioned out and he plays video games for a living. And, he was one person and now he has, a team of like 5 or 6, right? That kind of handle all of his work. So he is a very accomplished businessman.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Entrepreneur. Like, he had to learn how to like be a creator, and then he built such a strong business that now he needs a team and he has to learn how to like, have a different hat on. I think that's incredible. I mean, the creator economy obviously is really booming, and people are learning the value of they are the IP. You are the IP, and that you are the brand. And I found that's very not only empowering, like liberally, financially, socially, you can become, your own superpower. But I feel like it's something that it gives people an incredible amount of opportunity to change their own circumstances without having to wait for others to bring them opportunities.
So I see the book behind you. We all know you're a best-selling author.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about Rules of Self-Reliance and kind of the journey of, hey, I'm thinking about writing this book. I'm thinking about putting this out there, and kind of, what inspired you to kind of launch on that journey and how that's been.
Thank you so much for that. So first of all, the book is not about, when people see the word self in self-reliance, they're like, oh, she's teaching us how to be independent and we don't need anybody. It's actually the opposite. If you read the book, it's an inspiring book and it's educational, but I really want to teach people what skills that they can have within themselves that they can rely on themselves for before reaching out to do stuff. So one of the rules of the book is to teach you how to network. Like, I want everyone to know how to build proper relationships. And I want to rely on myself to build a network. I can't say, hey, Kwame, those friends you develop through business, can I have those relationships because I need them for my company? No, I need to know how to do that skill myself. Another rule of self-reliance is, how do you rely on yourself to create value for other people? Like, how can you be a difference maker for somebody else? Can you anticipate their needs or solve their problems? And if you are a value creator for others, then people want to keep you in their world, in their lives, in their orbit, in your company. And so I teach skills like that in the book. I teach the biggest chapter in the book is how to build your personal brand, because I feel like your reputation is a currency and I want you to know what it's worth and what its value is. The reason I wanted to write a book is for a long time, I've always had this, first of all, you can see my whole office. You can't see it, but like, I have a room here full of books. Like, I love books. And so I always wanted to write one, but I didn't know what I wanted to write about. It is about communications and PR. Is it about my upbringing of, it's an Egyptian brown girl growing up in Minnesota and then moving overseas and this big glamorous life in Dubai and then coming back. And so I didn't write about what I did. I talk about how I did it. How did I get this successful career? How did I get this lived experience? I knew how to create value for people. I knew how to build my brand. I knew how to build relationships. One of the rules of the book is called Don't Be a Waiter, because so much of life I discovered I was waiting. I was waiting for people to give me opportunities that were going to just fall into my lap and change my life. That's not how the world works. You can't wait for opportunities to come to you. You really need to create them yourself. And if you don't have the skills or experience, how do you go get them? And often we wait because we don't want people to judge us or we fear failure. And so those are some of the rules of the book, but I'm really proud of it. It's actually 6 months out now. It's been out for about 6 months. And the stories I get from people who have read it, who have already changed a lot of things in their lives, that was so rewarding for me. And I never thought I would be an author, but now I'm like, I'm ready to write the next one.
Love that. So I know it's always hard to pick within a segment
Yes.
of something where you wrote and poured your heart out. But if you were to pick one rule of self-reliance that you thought was most important in defining your career trajectory and success, which one would you go with?
It's rule number 4. Rule number four. Rule number 4. It's about investing in yourself, right? And so a lot of times in my life, I had to got asked to do things that I never done before. And I'm like, oh, I don't do that. I'm not a speechwriter. That's not what I do. Or I'm going to work on an IPO. I've never done that before. It's not what I do. But if you can have the mentality and the mind shift of you can invest in yourself, because the internet is for free, podcasts are for free, YouTube is for free, you can learn anything. And if you just take time to think about, you can invest in yourself and not wait for your employer to send you to training or give you this opportunity. That's the game changer for my career. Is I learned how to keep investing in myself, keep sharpening my saw, keep understanding how to be relevant in culture, keep understanding what's happening in sports, what's happening in music, what's happening in entertainment. How does that tie to business? How does that tie to storytelling? What's happening on platforms? Investing in yourself is the number one thing. If you want to be more self-reliant today than you were yesterday, you need to be curious and you need to invest in yourself. And that's been the thing that will forever be my thing. That's my DNA. I'm always ideas and focused on the future because I want to be growing and learning. And I want to always know, well, what can I invest in myself? I was looking up your company. I'm like, oh, how can I learn from you guys? What are the things that I can invest in myself to learn so I can be better at influencer marketing or outreach strategy? That's a critical way of the way the world works. And I'd like to embrace it and learn about it. And I want to spend some time investing in it.
I love that. I think it's so powerful. And I think about a lot of decision points in my life. And it's you are presented this opportunity to take a position and it's terrifying. And you're like, I'm not qualified for that job. And you step back and you go, what do I stand to gain? What do I stand to lose? And I think part of this is having trust with the leadership who's presenting this opportunity of saying, I'm going to step in, I'm going to help you out in a time of need. I'm going to learn an incredible amount. I'll most likely move the organization forward. And it might not be my forever job, but if I walk away with it, from this, I'll have so much a richer understanding of this entire area. For instance, at ZoomInfo, they were like, hey, will you be CMO? I'm not a marketer. I was an ops guy. I now have so much better a hold on marketing because of the 6 months I spent filling that gap while they were looking for a CMO.
Yeah, you got your hands dirty.
Yeah, and it was terrifying. And I was like, I felt like a fraud every single day. But I was like, we went through. We grew leads. We worked on the brand. We got content out. And I had such an appreciation for the discipline and what great marketing looks like. And then I think maybe one thing out of this is that investing in yourself. I walked away so much more confident in my ability to take on the next challenge as a consequence
Mm-hmm.
of that. And so each time you're asked to take a bigger and bigger leap, you're like, I can jump that far.
Yeah,
I
you
can,
get more
I can
confidence.
cross that.
Yeah,
100%.
100%. I feel also too, like sometimes we don't know if we're capable of doing it because we've never been asked before. But then once we do it, we're like, hey, I can do that. Like that's really not just reassuring, but it gives you that confidence to take the next step. And then when you face another fear, you're like, okay, it wasn't that bad. I think I can get through the next one.
What was one of those moments for you where you were like, I don't know if I can take this opportunity. I don't know if I'm
Oh, it
ready.
happened to me.
And
It happens to me all the time. Like it just, I always like put myself in these positions and then I'm like, I guess I'm doing this now. Like I never ran an IPO before. I mean, I got asked to write speeches for the Prime Minister of Egypt. I never did government work. I never did that kind of thing before. But I find like the biggest person who's feeding your negative thoughts into your self-doubt is you. Like the problems are always bigger in your head. You're probably the one that's in the way of your success, and so you really need to get out of your own way so that you can kind of go through those fears and those challenges, and then find out that like you can actually conquer them. So I give many examples in the book, but I feel like the hardest thing to do is to take the first step, and then once you do, you're like, okay, I think I can get another step.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that in reference of like sports for me, right? You have to reference it to something that you're used to or
Yep.
understand. And I think like whenever I go play with a team that plays at a higher level than me, I get significantly better. And when I go back to a level that I'm used to, it just feels so much easier. I mean, for me, when I started playing soccer, I started playing in 11th grade. So I didn't have a lot of technical ability. So my first year, I was really, really bad. I was just really fast. So I made the team. And then that whole summer, I just trained over and over and over.
Yep.
12th grade year, came back, scored 5 goals in the first game. That's when I really like things changed for me, and I was like, okay, put in the effort to this, play at a higher level. I was playing with guys who were just significantly better than me. I can get good at this. And so when I went to college, didn't have the best overall college experience, but I went to go try out at a professional soccer team, which I did not think I would make. But I got lucky and made that team. And through that, I started playing with them every day. And even though I was the worst player when I first got there, by the time that I left,
You
I
were
was
a different
maybe
person.
yeah, I was about mid, right in the middle. And then the next team that I stepped up, I went over to Europe and started playing at another team, and I got in as the worst, and then went
Ended up at
bit higher. So yeah, so it's all about challenging yourself to a point where you have to force yourself to play at a higher level, to think at a higher level, to work at a higher level. And whenever you can do that, you will start to adjust. And then the next thing you know, if you go back to the level you were used to, you'll think, wow,
Yeah, exactly.
this is
That's
easy.
so true. I always used to think of opportunities in terms of like, what is it giving me a chance to learn or a chance to earn? Because sometimes we might take a job and you're like, oh my God, I can make a lot of money. But I'm like, that might be in that stage in your life where you need to be thinking about earning. But there's sometimes in my life where I tell the story in the book about I got offered to be, I was living in Minnesota. I was 27, worked at General Mills, did sports marketing, worked for all the coolest brands, like have a master's degree on top of my world, move to Egypt. And I get asked to be the secretary for a billionaire. Like after I was like working in this great marketing job, loving life. And I'm like, I'm overqualified. This is like not the right job for me. Like I was like full of myself. Like, I'm like, this is not the right role for me. I can't take this job. But then I'm like, my dad gave me the advice and I took his advice, even though I really hated it at the time, that like, I just moved to Egypt. I didn't know anybody. I didn't speak the language. You're going to work for a billionaire. You're going to be very close to the sun. You're going to learn a lot about how his business runs. You're going to learn about every single person who wants to meet him has to go through you. You're going to be building a lot of relationships. Like it's like the perfect job for you. And I did. I put my head down. I started to network with everyone. I learned how to create value for him. I studied every piece of paper coming in and out of the office. But I had to take that first step of like, okay, this isn't going to be what I want to be doing, but there's going to be a long term game in it. And I'm going to get a chance to learn. And then I'll worry about earning money once I have skills and expertise and know how and knowledge. And I feel like it's just taking that inflection point for you to think about opportunities that come to you. Is like, if it gives you a chance to learn, then it's a hell yeah, I want to do it. And then get the earning at a later stage.
It's such good feedback. It's funny you mentioned your dad's feedback. I, I used to get so mad when managers would be like, "Hey, why don't you go try this job over here? It'll like teach you all these skills." And I'm like, "But that's a lateral." And or you're like, and it's
Down
just
on it.
this doesn't move me up the corporate chain. And I think like there's this maturing that a lot of people do, some don't, but I think everyone is capable of in time, which is, you know, if you're truly seeking to build the most well-rounded version of yourself, the most kind of complete person,
Yeah.
in the corporate context, in the personal context, it's going to require you to do some things that are not sexy. They're not
Yeah.
the next big move. They might not be the next big dollar thing. And it's so funny because I see people interviewing people who maybe are going from like a director down to a manager or an SVP back to a senior director. And you're like, why would you want to take that
Yeah.
job?
Why
And
would you
and
take this move?
I love the answer of like, I'm investing in my long-term growth. I know that this is something that's going to lead to big things for me, and just that growth mindset, and also the ability to make a sacrifice willingly for your own growth.
Yep.
I think that quality in individuals, coming to work for us or that I see in my life, it's super commendable, and it is a hard decision to make that kind of investment in yourself. Coming back to your fourth rule around, sometimes you have to do things that are a little counterintuitive in order to take a step forward. So it's
Yeah.
really, really, really
100%.
interesting.
Yeah, and it looks like, I mean, you've been investing a lot in your social. Go the extra mile to make sure that your content looks good. It looks representative, kind of what you're trying to do within your mission. And as this is a very influencer and creator focused conversation that we'd like to have, I'd love to know what inspired you to think in that direction, right? And ultimately, right, like, where do you see this content creating opportunity for you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for that. One of the things I want to do with my content, I think anybody who's listening to this podcast should think about is like, what's in it for the audience? Like, can I share something that's going to give them something valuable? And they always talk about create value for your audience, think about your audience, and don't think about like, I got out of my head for a long time. I was like, oh, I'm not going to post that video. I don't like how I look or my hair, or I'm too fat or whatever. And I'm like, nobody's looking for that. Nobody cares about that. Like, that's a me thing, not a they thing. And so I always think about, how can I tell stories that people can connect with? How can I give them valuable content? And let's say a video is performing really well. I might break that down into a carousel and share it in a written format, like with slides, just because I know the message is resonating. And so I think about like the staying true to the topics that I'm very good at, like teaching people about personal brand, communication, storytelling, networking, how to get media or free publicity coverage. Like I stick in my lane. And then I show a lot about my life, like when I go to Dubai or behind the scenes at the Super Bowl or my family or on the tennis court. Like I want people to see the whole me, because that's also authenticity. I think I'm going to get ready to do a post, which will be out by the time the show comes out, about Meghan Markle's show. And like, there's been a lot of buzz about it, and good or bad, doesn't matter. But it's like, what did that teach us? It's about authenticity and relatability and consistency, and people are watching. So how do you take that attention and turn it into a moment to really tell people who you are and what you care about? So I try to think about, sticking to the key things, my main things that I'm good at, that I want people to learn from. How can I give it away for free? Building opportunities for people to know how they can do this too, because I believe in it. And I know a lot of people like to gatekeep their information. I'm like, I would give it away for free to everybody who wants to know, because I think that's my expertise. And I'm clear on my mission, which is to help people communicate better. So I try to live what I believe. And then I think about being creative about how I'm using the insights and data. Like, oh, if that's a well-performing video, turn it into a carousel. Or if I think something's really cool behind the scenes or a trending song, like making sure you're using it in a way that's authentic to you, so it doesn't look like you're too forced or whatever. And I test all the time. I don't have all the answers. Like, I met with somebody at LinkedIn, and he's like, I want to see more videos. And I'm like, he's a senior executive in the company. And like, now I'm posting videos and they're doing really well. And there's like a feed coming in from LinkedIn, and thought leadership matters. And I feel like, everyone has the opportunity. The internet is for free right now. It might not be free in 5 years.
That
It's
is
so
true.
it's amazing. I feel like we have independently come to the exact same conclusion, which is just get the content out there and experiment, see what works. And I love what you said about LinkedIn too. Like, all the content I want to engage with on LinkedIn is video content. It's insightful. It's value add. It's genuine. It doesn't need to be the perfect, most polished thing. And I think just the world is a little bit tired of this is like super generic posts. And so I think if you have things that are valuable, you can tell them in a compelling way.
Yeah.
And it's just so much more engaging. How I'm curious on when you go to create content, some people are like, I'm going to create a mile long content calendar and I have all these core themes and I dole it out. Are you kind of like, are you a planner? Are you like a week out planner? Or are you just like, I'm going to sit down with my phone and just let it rip and whatever kind of inspired me that morning when I woke up and I was having breakfast?
Yeah.
I'm
So
curious how you approach it.
we use an app called Plannable. And we basically do like a week. Like I'll sit down and do a lot of writing on Monday or Sundays. And we basically plan content, ideas. There's some signature things that I kind of always do all the time, like a selfie, and they put a quote on it. Or I want to talk about the book. So we plan, like definitely don't do a month out, but like I do like think through the week and then we adjust. Like we're like, oh, let's do something about this Meghan Markle thing. Let's like, it's happening now in the market. Let's adjust that. Or if something is trending and we want to do that, then I'll do that. But I do sit down and plan once a week, and it doesn't take a lot of time, because the biggest thing, the reason why people, because I asked this question on my social last week, I'm like, why aren't you building your personal brand? And a lot of the questions, the answers came back on like, I don't have a team, or I don't know how to content, I don't know where to start, or I don't know what to talk about. So I'm like, well, so I try to like make sure that I make that simple for other people too. Like if, what are you passionate about? What are you talking about all the time with your friends and family? That's what you need to talk about. Like if it's cooking and that's your thing, or if it's your line of business and you love it and you want to talk about that, like that's what I do. And so I try to make it manageable and snackable, because if I have this overwhelming, daunting process, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be consistent at it. And so, I sit down and I plan a week, and then if like we make adjustments, like already this weekend, there's things I was going to post. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm changing my mind. I want to post this, or an interview came out, or somebody invited me to collab post that I forgot was coming. Like you make adjustments live, but like try to be thoughtful and intentional about it so that you can give value to your audience. Don't wing it, because then it's a process and it becomes a burden, and then you don't want to do it, and then you don't enjoy it. And if you don't have joy, it comes off that there's no joy. So that's kind of how I do it.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who changes the content calendar on like 2 days notice consistently.
Yes. Yeah, but I try to like plan it, think through it like Monday through Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Maha, you're a wealth of knowledge. And obviously, I'm sure that people in your life would say that you were this person for them. But when you think about your career and your journey, do you have anybody that you have met that you thought really had made the most impact? And you can give a few people, if you want to, but if you can really name some people who have made major impact.
I mean, my first boss at General Mills, Barb Geno, she was a big impact on me, because her style of how she managed and led me was like very intimidating for me, but actually taught me the most. Like she made me read The Economist, and she thought that would like, if you're a good reader, you'll be a good writer. And that was very true. And she was right. And it had language in there that taught me things. And I never want to read that magazine again. But it was just good. My father was a big inspiration in my life. I talk about him a lot in my book. My sister, an executive at General Mills for 35 years, like she's a good people manager and a leader. And how do you have a career at the same company for 35 years? Like she does a lot right to do that, so I like want to learn a lot from her. I admire her. So and then there's people on the internet that are my mentors that don't even know that they're my mentors. I follow their work, or I like listening to things that they talk about. And so, it can come from anywhere, but the thing this is to listen to it, right? Is to listen to the advice or the tough love when you don't really want to take it. I put together like a personal board of directors. That's one of the ideas I talk about in my book. Who are 2 or 3 people in your life that can be on your personal board of directors, that people who love you and care about you, will give you tough love, will give advice, will be there to be a resource to support you. Think about putting one together. I encourage all of my clients and my friends to do it, and they love it. Like they have an accountability partner, and they meet with them for coffee once a quarter and talk about their careers or their goals or fitness goals or any personal development goals that they have. And it really helps having a circle with you when you're trying to achieve something.
I love that concept of the personal board of directors. It's so funny. I joke all the time. My wife is also very direct like I am. And it's funny because I'll just go get feedback. She's like, that looks awful, or that's terrible. Or like, I listen to the podcast. You guys could do better. Like, here's my 17 notes.
Feedback. Yeah.
And I'm like, it's great.
Like,
and
what
like,
is that post? That's cringe.
It's so funny because I think Kwame is like, Rachel, can you stop with the feedback for a moment? I need to digest all this stuff.
It's funny. I when I was looking for our next guests, I texted Scott and I was like, "Hey, can you ask Rachel?" So yeah, like it's the involvement.
Rachel's your wife?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
By the way, we talk about networking, and I'll shout out Kwame for this, and just kind of investing in people and relationships. So a little bit of context: my daughter is 8 years old. She does like very competitive gymnastics, spends a ton of time on it. We go around all over the place and do events all over the Northwest of the US. So we're in Portland area, and she had a competition that was up in Seattle where Kwame's at. But it was 45 minutes from his place. I gave him like a half day's notice, just saying, "Hey, I'm in Seattle. Like maybe we should grab lunch or something." And he's like, "Well, when's Grace's competition? I'd love to come out and see her." He spent 3.5 hours at a gymnastics competition, 45 minutes away from his house on a Saturday. And Grace was so thrilled. And Rachel and I just kind of looked at each other and was like, that was huge of Kwame. That was like a huge investment in time in our relationship to show up, and not to make it like whatever, but I think those are the types of people in your life who would go out of their way, make you feel special, spend the whole time talking with you and trying to understand and like, okay, how's Grace's scored? Like that looked like a good one, and getting into it. And, also for him, like he gets recognized places, and we're in a small place with a lot of people who are like clearly recognizing Kwame. And I'm like, he didn't have to put himself in that position, but it was one of those moments where I think it was a clear investment in friendship and a relationship, and it meant a lot. And he and I haven't had this conversation, but those are some of the things where when you show up in a unique and special way for people, they will not forget that for a very long time. And so whether it's a work relationship, a personal relationship, it doesn't need to be contrived, but I think sometimes when you get an invite, when someone asks you for help, maybe think like, what is their perspective? What's their context? And what would it mean to them if I can take that time out to help them to show up? And, also I think Kwame got something out of that experience, and like he feels more connected to like myself and my family, and it strengthened our relationship. So I just think it's really interesting, those types of moments and how we interact and
how you show up for people is everything. Like, giving people your time is your most precious asset. That just matters. And it just shows people your character and what you care about. And in the value of spending time with someone is really, really, really important.
The biggest thing in that was me looking at myself and saying, would I have done the same thing? And that was an uncomfortable internal dialogue.
I don't think
not for Kwame, but just like if one of my friends was like, hey, can you come watch my kids' gymnastics things for 3 hours on a Saturday, 45 minutes from your house? It would be a stretch. It would be a lot.
Priorities. You're like priorities.
Oh, you know what? Well, Scott, thanks for saying that, man. I appreciate it. And I did enjoy that day. It was really fun. And I did learn a lot about gymnastics in case I ever have a daughter who ever gets into gymnastics.
Yeah,
so
now you're ready.
Right. But with that being said, you said that Maha, you said that you've had a few people who've had impact on you, and you said that your father had some impact on you. And I know, we talked a little bit about, things that matter to you, right? Like things that you're passionate about, social issues or just like major things that matter to you. So, I'd love to dive into that a little bit. You sent over a few ideas. And so, let's dive into some social issues that matter to you.
So I'm on the board of the Animal Humane Society. So my whole life I've been like a dog lover. Sadly, 3 weeks ago, my dog passed away, and I'd had her Coco for like 16 years. And I've always had dogs and just compassionate for animals. And so in the Animal Humane Society had seen like me posting about Coco and talking about her in my personal brand. They're like, we see that you love animals. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a sucker for, they can't advocate for themselves and they bring us so much joy. And there's a lot of health benefits to petting a dog and being around animals, and we're their whole world. And so I got involved with them. And we think about like when the fires happened out in LA, there were a lot of dogs and cats that got missing, and they are part of our family. So I'm kind of like social issues, really working on with them, helping advocate for rescuing dogs, rescuing animals, advocating for them. And then my father had ALS, he had Lou Gehrig's disease, and my mother had MS, multiple sclerosis. I mean, two neurological diseases that couldn't be more harsh on a human being or their body. And I didn't have one parent. I had both parents with this severe neurological diseases. So I think about like the impact AI is going to have on like the people not suffering from some of these diseases, because we're going to unlock the medical, mysteries of why do people get these diseases? How do we solve them? How do we find better treatments for people? So just kind of lending a lot of my time to figuring out how can I support people who suffer from these diseases that take away their lives in ways that is very devastating. ALS, like your brain is intact, but like your body becomes a coffin, you can't move. Remember when the ice bucket challenge came out? That was like a big thing for like ALS Foundation, and that actually raised so much money, and the repercussions, that was like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, it's still helping people today. So I find like if we can be more than yourself and spend time on more than yourself and being part of your community and being part of society in ways that can contribute positively, like think about your schedule in a week or in a month. How much time is that? Are you giving it to someone outside of you and yourself and your family and your company? And try to find a way to contribute 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Is it helping somebody? Even for me, like if I can help do storytelling for the Animal Humane Society, that's how I can use my skills to help them advocate for raising money for what they need for animal shelters or whatever. So I feel like everybody can do their small part in a way to contribute to an issue that either they care about or that they've been impacted by or have suffered from or have a friend or a loved one who has suffered from something. It just brings a little bit more purpose and meaning to your life, and gives you that feeling of contributing in a way that's intentional.
I love that. It's so powerful. I love that you give back. It's funny, this whole conversation, I feel like I got a little personal coaching session. I feel like inspired to go out and
do
some self-reflection, go do something for society, call someone and tell them I care about it or something. But
yeah, it's powerful.
No, there's so many insights, and I just, there's so many ways to give back, to give value. And I think if I were to pick one core theme for this whole conversation, it was just, turning a focus outward a little bit, and how can you better yourself to also better society, better others, better those who are in your charge at work or in your life, to improve society and make the world a better place for yourself and for all of those other individuals.
Be a value creator.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, net positive value add. That's going to be the title.
We're going to get t-shirts. We're going to get t-shirts.
We are going to get t-shirts. Well, Maha, it's been an absolute pleasure, having you on the show. You've been absolutely great. You've delivered a lot of nuggets. I'm going to let you have this, last 30 seconds or a minute or whatever, and just share your last thoughts with us about anything that you want to share with the world before you, yes. Before we end this conversation.
I will end it with this. The final chapter of the book is talks about living with no regrets. And that a lot of times it's easy to say that, but it's very hard to do. And if you have something that happened in your life, don't let that define you. Because I had two parents that were severely handicapped and passed away. I spent most of my life being a caretaker, but I didn't want that to define me. I wanted to turn my struggle into a strength. And how did I take that experience of taking care of two very sick parents for most of my adult life until I was 37, 38, into becoming this communications executive and have a career and find myself and what do I care about? And I put this in the book, and it's the last message I'll leave everyone with is like, if not you, who? And if not now, when? Because a lot of people think, well, how come they can do that? And how they can do that? And it's like, I always just say, if not me, who can do that? I can do it. I'm capable of doing it. And if not now, when? Because I don't want to be a waiter. Life is too short. There's so many opportunities. We've never lived in a better time to be alive. Go out and grab those opportunities and take advantage of them. If it's just one thing you can do, try to make a difference for yourself this year.
Awesome. That's amazing. I'm pumped. I'm ready to go and do some good in the world and go be net value add. But in all sincerity, thank you so much, Maha. It was an amazing conversation. One of the best we've had. I feel fired up. I think our audience will love the message and go out and do some net positivity on their own. So thanks again for coming by.
I appreciate you.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye. Wanna hear you go.